Mechanics. That's the very first word I wanted to say on this new live stream I'm doing. However, just bear with me while I check that I'm actually live. Yes, I'm live on Facebook. Am I live on YouTube? I believe I am. I need to turn the audio off on each one. Yes, I'm live on YouTube. I think I'm live on Twitch also. And the audio is already off. Okay, I'll just look at the chat screen. So I just wanted to say it's a nice day outside today. No, I'm joking. I just said that to annoy Andrew, my friend of mine, who told me not to say that. So this is my first pathfinding stream, and the structure of the streams are going to be, the next stream will be a formal introduction to pathfinding. So this is a hello from pathfinding. And then after that, there will be the actual, you could call them episodes. In fact, I'm going to call them season and episode. So, yeah, I'm just doing this first one partly to get used to live streaming and looking at the camera, and partly just to introduce live streaming. So yeah, when I do the introduction on the next episode, it will be more details about what it's about and the instruction and the episodes. So just introduce myself. I'm Peter, British guy, live in the north of England. And so why did I want to start pathfinding? Well, over the last 10 or 20 or even 30 years, there's a lot of things I've been thinking about and a lot of angles of thought that I have that I feel are different from other people that I'm going to talk about. And the reason I said mechanics as the very first word when I started pathfinding is because I really wanted it to be a central theme of everything I talk about. When I was growing up, especially when I became in my late teens and in my 20s, I found faith in God, but I was also strongly interested in science and psychology and sociology and ontology, which is the philosophy, the study of the nature of reality. And so when I did grow in my faith about spiritual things, I was always really frustrated when I would ask questions about something and I would just be given some fuzzy answer where I wanted mechanical answers to everything. I want to know how it works. For example, if somebody says, don't eat this food or don't eat that food, and you ask them why not, they can usually give you a mechanical answer about how the body works and how nutrition works. Or if somebody says, don't engage in this behavior, or don't take drugs, or don't drink a lot, or be careful about getting infections or something, it's a rule or an advice, but people can always tell you why. There's a mechanical reason why, right? This will happen, and this will have a reaction, and this will have a reaction, and the result will be something you either like or don't like. But when it comes to even philosophical things, or when it comes to what you might call spiritual things, or even theology, which is different from spiritual. When it comes to theological things, like whether you're a Christian or a Buddhist or a Muslim or a Taoist or anything, there are certain precepts in their holy texts. And often it's frustrating that you're expected to believe in them and follow them without actually understanding the mechanics of why they're something useful. And deep thinkers have understood that for a long time. If you look at the Old Testament, for example, the Old Testament wasn't just written down one day by somebody. It was things that were put into practice over hundreds of generations, maybe thousands of generations, over thousands of years. And they figured out what works and what doesn't work, and partly it's, spiritual sensitivity, maybe revelation, you could say. And then they worked out what works. And so it's mechanics. And of course, there are some things in spiritual guidance which seems to be just mysterious instructions from above. But actually what I've found over the years, as I said, in my 20s, when I was learning it, it was more the wisdom came, but without any explanation of how it works. And so I had to find out myself how it works by trial and error and thinking about it and researching and studying a broad field. So I've arrived at a state of mind where I describe myself as a mechanist, which is somebody who wants to find out the mechanics of how everything works, whether it's internal things or external things. And over the years and over the decades, I came to this shocking realization one day. Maybe it was about 12, 13, 14 years ago. Anyway, I had this shocking revelation that when you boil everything down, the core principles, or sometimes the people call it first principles, then I found that there's a surprising, amazing similarity of the core principles of the things that we know in the natural world, or the way society works, or human relationships work, and the things that are in certain books. Well, as a Christian, I would say the Old Testament and New Testament, or the understanding of how God created human beings. So it was a big surprise to me to find that they're the same principles behind everything. And so when I think about theological or biblical or spiritual things, I see them and I just recognize, oh my God, in the natural world, I can see the exact same principles being enacted. And then when I look at the natural world from a scientific point of view, again, I'm shocked. I see very similar principles behind things, which are, you could say, espoused in the Old Testament and New Testament. So I thought to myself, what's going on here? And in recent times, you might have heard of Jordan Peterson's doing a lot of Bible lectures, and he's going to be doing more, I believe he said. And even though he's not necessarily a believer himself, he's about as close as you can get to being a believer without being a believer. But he recognizes the unbelievable wisdom in certain Bible things that on the surface look maybe even silly or fantastical, but when you look deeper into them, you can see certain principles being expressed through those stories. So I don't want these pathfinding talks to be taken by people as some religious guy talking about the Bible or talking about religious things or talking about God or spiritual things. And nor do I want these talks to be taken as somebody talking about the natural world or psychology or just sociology. I want there to be a fusion of the two. And it's easy enough to say that. You can say, oh, well, there should be a fusion of the two. But actually, I should be able to back it up, right? And so I think I can. I have about 55, 60 talks to give. And they're all going to be like that. I'll be going along in some of the talks and I'll be talking about the structure of trees or human biology or psychology or anthropology. And then I'll just jump and I'll be talking about things that seem on the surface not to be connected at all. And vice versa. I might be talking about so-called spiritual matters, life after death or God or the human spirit. And then I'll just veer into talking about natural law and science. Because, I don't think there's a difference between the two. There's a lot of talk about what it means, the logos. So in the Bible, it talks about the logos, or sometimes we use the phrase the word. The word was with God. And people have different versions of what that means. A lot of Christians think the logos just means Jesus, but it doesn't. The logos really just means the principle by which God himself exists and by which he creates. So like the original blueprint. And so that logos was expressed in the natural world, and everything in the natural world is an expression of that, not just the physical things, but the way things interact. And on the spiritual side, for people who are more theologically minded, the logos is also the originating principle, the blueprint by which God created our souls. So Jesus was an expression of the logos, a perfect expression where, part of most religions, especially Christianity, is that human beings, we are an expression of the logos, but we are kind of compromised by what they call sin. So again, there's another word like sin. It just sounds like a legalistic, spiritually legalistic term. So I'm going to be talking about it purely in terms of something like an infection or maybe radiation poisoning, something like that. If anybody talks about an infection or radiation poisoning, people don't have to think about, well, it's just something we can't understand. No, science today can explain mechanically what those things are. Sin is no different, completely no different. And so it's not going to be, oh, you're sinful. It's going to be a mechanical, almost doctor-like diagnosis. So that's what pathfinding is going to be. I don't want to say it's going to be a religious-based channel. Well, I should say Facebook page. I'm on Facebook. I'm streaming live now to, if it's working, streaming live now to YouTube and to Twitch. So, but nor do I want to say it's a science one. It's a fusion of both and something more, I think. And so that's one side of what pathfinding is. So sometimes I'll be talking about really, really high-level concepts. Again, I'm not patronizing when I explain words, because most of the technical words I'm using, like ontology, I only learned myself in my 30s and 40s. And I'm very aware that when we're in our teens and 20s and 30s, there's a lot of words we don't know. So sometimes I'll say a word and I'll quickly give an explanation. It doesn't mean I think nobody knows that. It's just that I know some people don't know it. So yeah, ontology, the study of the nature of reality. And explaining that, I've lost my lost my thread a little bit. So Pathfinding is going to be a talk about ontology, but it's going to be psychology, sociology, science, all the sciences, human nature, and then it's going to be the roots of that, which is, who is God? Is God real? Did God create? But the theme that goes along with everything is going to be mechanics, right? Well, my understanding is that everything has a mechanical structure and a mechanical design. Everything does. Either it does and we know what it is and we can explain it, or it does and we don't yet know what it is. Like, there's so many things about quantum mechanics and even deeper things than that scientists just don't understand. But you can bet every single scientist believes that there is an explanation. It's not magic. And so they just accept that for now we're trying to understand it and we don't. And it's the same with spiritual things. There's a mechanical structure to everything. Everything works. And it's very comforting to know that, actually, because it can get really tiring being curious about things and having this understanding or this belief, or being told, oh, we can never understand that, we're just human. Nonsense. We can understand anything eventually, given enough time. And so Pathfinding, it's a name I thought about for a long time. And I've remembered my thread. Let me continue. So my thread is that there's going to be two angles in a way to pathfinding. One is the ontological stuff, the study of the nature of everything, reality, and it's going to be high-level things, really, really advanced things. So myself, I come from a background of, I guess I grew up as a Christian because I was forced to go to Sunday school, but I wasn't really into it. Then I became Christian when I was about 18. Then I joined an organization called Unification Church. It was quite controversial at the time. It's a Christian group, but I'm not really part of that organization anymore. But it's a Christian group, but they have like amazing theology. Just the organization is pretty crappy. But the theology and understanding of the Bible is amazing. And they call that theology divine principles. So I have a Christian background, and more recently I got a lot of, I would say from a certain teacher, I have a lot of rabbinic Jewish kind of understanding of the angle. Jews understand the Old Testament. Remember that scene in Game of Thrones when Tywin Lannister said, the Northerners will understand the cold like something like we'll never be able to. Well, Christians think they understand the Old Testament, but when you talk to rabbis or Jews, we realize our understanding of the Old Testament is so weak. Anyway, so I guess you could say I have an Old Testament Jewish style background in faith study, Christian background, but also a love of science and things. So, and then divine principle has been the best understanding of that. But then I'm going even beyond that, because I guess I've got my own theories as well, which I'm going to be talking about. Some of them are quite shocking as well, but a lot of them are more shedding light on things. So there's that really high level stuff. But at the same time, I'm going to be talking about things on a first principles boiled down level that can be of practical use, mechanical practical use in people's, how can I say this, in people's desire to grow and self-develop, to sculpt themselves. And the reason why I'm just as excited about this, so in some ways I'll be talking on really fundamental things. It's a bit like when I was in Korea, I used to teach English. Sometimes I taught really advanced English to business people. Sometimes I taught delightful 12-year-olds, and I had to slog it out just teaching them the alphabet and those kind of things. But, it's pleasurable in a way to look at the foundations of things. So the reason I want to also add an angle to the talk to explain fundamental things as well as advanced things is because a lot of people grow up, no, I don't want to say confused, but they don't necessarily have deep guidance. Maybe they have good families, but they don't have deep guidance from a pastor or even psychological stuff. That's why Jordan Peterson's so popular. He's just clarifying a lot of things for people. And there's a lot of people like me that grew up without a family, that were really struggling, undeveloped. So by the time I was in my late teens and 20s, I was confident and cocky. I thought I was a know-it-all, but I was a know-nothing. I didn't understand life at all. And people would just say things, oh, you have to do this, or you're going to be like that, and this is like this. And then you sort of just accept it. But after a while, you need to understand it. And there is one advantage to growing up under-nurtured, shall I say. You know, if you don't have parents when you grow up, you're just under-nurtured in a way that can be devastating for a lot of people. But there's an advantage to it if you can get through it. And that is because you have to learn a lot of the most fundamental life lessons. You understand them. It's a bit like, is it the Socratic method of teaching where the finalization, the fulfillment of learning is when you teach to others? Well, in a similar way, I would say that the deepest knowledge comes from having found the knowledge through trial and error experience and experiencing what works. Because experience is real knowledge. You know, the word knowledge and experience, they're very strongly connected. Whereas you can learn something in a class or from a book, but it's when you have experience. So I would say that the difference between knowledge and wisdom is that wisdom is knowledge plus experience. So yeah, one of the advantages of growing up in that way, under-nurtured, is that you have to slog through and learn a lot of even the fundamental things about life. And that could be that will cause people to mature later in life. Whereas people that grow up with really good families and really good teachers, where they have a good balance of discipline and freedom, or discipline and love as well, they tend to grow up and become super mature adults, even at very young ages. And well, you know, I'm a late bloomer, and a lot of people maybe that was in my situation will be struggling to understand things about life. And so I'll be talking a lot about those things as well, because I had to learn a lot of those things by trial and error, trying the wrong thing and experiencing the evil fruit of that, experiencing being depressed or having anxiety or not being successful or not having not being happy about the way your life is going, and then trying other things and experiencing the good fruit of that. Wow, this works. When I do this, this, and this, when I live like this, it really works. And then building that knowledge. And yeah, as I was saying, I think there's a deeper understanding of those things if you had to scrabble up the mountain by yourself to get to the top, rather than taking the escalator or whatever they call those ski lift things. Anyway, the gondolas. So I'll be talking about really advanced things, and I'll be talking about really basic things for human development, for personal development. And I'm not going to be giving any magic bullets. I'm not going to be giving any secrets. Or if you just do this one thing, you'll be great. No. If you had all the knowledge in the world, it's just a hard slog to develop ourselves, even at the best of times. So, but if you don't understand some things about how the human soul, the human heart, the human mind works, human relationships, if you don't understand some things, then no matter how hard you try, it's like you're scrambling up the mountain, you just keep sliding back down. So yeah, I think I'd like my audience to be people who are interested in super high-level, high-concept things about the nature of reality and our existence, and also people that can use some of that are really struggling, and that can just shed light on things. So a bit of both, and that's why I came up with the name Pathfinding. I was gonna call it applied ontology. Sometimes say oncology, but that's a different thing. Applied ontology, because it's, you know, understanding the nature of reality and applying it to your life. But it just sounds too, you know, technical and academic. Pathfinding, I think, is a great name, and so I don't think I've made it very clear what pathfinding is going to be, but that's basically because this is just a hello. This is partly to say hello and establish pathfinding, and the next episode will be Introduction to Pathfinding, where I introduce a lot of the topics I'm going to be talking about and a lot of the principles the angles of attack that I'll be coming at those topics. So it will become a lot more clear then. So yeah, this is just a hello. And also partly, live streaming's a funny thing. I could have done these as recordings, and I know a lot of people do. And then they edit them, and then they cut out odd, awkward bits. But right now I'm speaking extemporaneously. I'm just, actually, I've created these different angles, so let me just make use of one. So right now I'm just speaking extemporaneously. And when I'm with friends, hanging out with 2 or 3 friends, and I start riffing on something, I can just go, and I can be quite eloquent and also very structured in the way I lay out my ideas. But when I try and prepare a script and write it down, like I've given a talk at church sometimes, the times that I've tried to do it with just the script, I just end up writing a massive essay and just reading in a wooden way from this page, and it just doesn't work. So I'm going to give these talks mainly by just having a few bullet points and then just speaking extemporaneously. There's another word. It just means on the fly. And yeah, so this is just a quick hello. And oh yeah, I was saying, and so I'll do better if I speak extemporaneously, even though there will be a lot of awkwardness and I'll stumble over words and things and I'll forget ideas. But at the same time, also getting into the habit of live streaming. I'm not that technical, but I had to get some guys online to help me set up the software to do the live streaming and this thing here, which is the sound and the app. And I've pretty much got it. But if I add editing onto that, I'm so terrible at editing. It's a nightmare. And so I just get completely exhausted. If I had to edit a 20-minute video, it would probably take me 10 hours and I'd just be exhausted. So I think in programming, there's a concept called agile, which is instead of planning everything out perfectly and then starting the execution, you start and then you iterate as you go along. So I think it's more motivating for me if I do it that way, agile. And the reason I'm doing it live instead of recording is because if I'm speaking to a camera and I'm just recording, maybe I'll constantly be thinking, well, I can edit that, I can say that again, and it'll never get done, so I'll never finish. When I'm live, even if there's no audience, which probably there isn't because I've just started, but when I'm live, whether there's nobody or whether there's thousands of people, I will feel like I'm actually talking to somebody. I even considered getting a little cardboard cutout of a bunch of people, a picture photograph, and sticking it behind the camera so I feel like I'm talking to somebody rather than the camera. Anyway, so that's part of the reason. And also part of the agile nature is because I've got like 50 or 60 topics, I'll go through them all one by one. And I've got lots of pictures and some videos and some audio to support the presentations, which I'll switch to. And I'll go through them. But in a way, the first season will be exploring those ideas. Even though I've already fleshed a lot of them out, it'll be sort of exploring. And after each talk, I will rewatch it. And that will be cringe, having to rewatch myself. But I'll rewatch it and I'll make notes, what I could say better, what I can do better, how can I condense this idea and express it in a more condensed way, and which pictures are better to use. And so the first season, I've decided to call it Season 0. Every episode will have a season number and an episode number. And even though I've got 50 or 60 topics, some of them are science-based and some of them are psychology-based, some of them are theology-based, spiritual-based. But as I said, there'll be a mix of everything. But as I go through each one, it will be, for example, so the next episode, which is the introduction, is going to be called Season 0, Episode 0. And then the very first episode, which I'll give you a primer, it's about trees, basically. Anyway, that's all I'll say. That will be Season 0, Episode 1. And then once I've gone through the whole season, then I'll do them all again, but by then there might be other talks added that have come to me or that are things that I didn't realize I also wanted to talk about. And then hopefully that second season will be the same talks, but in a much more polished way. So that will be Season 1, Episode 1, Season 1, Episode 2. Yeah, so that's my idea. That could change, but that's the way it's going to go. So it's going to be agile. It's always going to be live because I don't feel motivated recording when it's not live. I mean, not motivated. I'm strongly motivated to talk about these things, but I don't necessarily feel motivated to. I don't feel like I'm talking to anybody if it's not live. So even if I'm, let me go back to this one. Even if I'm talking to actually nobody because nobody's watching, I still feel like I'm talking to somebody. And also these live recordings will be saved on Twitch. I'm not sure how long it will be saved on Twitch, 60 days or whatever. And on Facebook. But with the YouTube one, because it broadcasts in 720p, I will be saving it, and then, it saves in 1440p, but it only broadcasts in 720p. So after the stream on YouTube, what I'll do is I'll upload it as a video and then delete the live stream. So it'll be a better quality. Alrighty, I think I've blabbed on enough. I didn't really have a structure of what I wanted to say. I just wanted to say hello and sort of talk about a little bit about what pathfinding is. But as I say, in the next episode, season 0, episode 0, introduction to pathfinding, I'll go into a lot more detail. And then we'll be off. The next episode will be the first episode about trees, which sounds weird, doesn't it? It's not just about like farming and trees. It's really about how tree structure and branching structure is more profound than we think. It's not just some mathematical thing that some scientists study it a lot because there's a lot of profound mathematical nature in branching structure and tree structure. But actually, it goes deeper and deeper and deeper than we could ever imagine. And I'll be talking about that, so it'll be quite an involved, maybe even a long talk. So I'm super excited about that. Then after that, I'll do a few live streams sort of relating to that. So the first one will really be about nature, the universe, the actual trees, tree structure in information systems, tree structure in biology. So really it'll be focusing on nature. And then after that, the next episode, I believe, I'll be talking about Genesis in the Bible, the tree of life and tree of knowledge of good and evil, because the Bible's full of references to trees used as metaphors. But that's what part of the realization I had one day is that we think of them as just metaphors, it's just a poetic thing. But actually there's deeply profound things about tree structures, the structure and function of trees that we see in everything, in things that we wouldn't even think we see in. And so it's interesting to think about how a lot of great thinkers interpret the tree of life and tree of knowledge of good and evil in the Garden of Eden. So I'll be talking about what the other people's theories are. Then I'll be talking about my theory. And then the next episode we'll be talking about some symbolic stuff from the Bible. One will be Adam's rib, a woman, Eve, being made from Adam's rib. God put Adam into a deep sleep and took out a rib and made woman. What other people think about that? And I'll be giving what I believe to be the deepest explanation of that. The burning bush, what that's a metaphor for, because there was a bush burning that Moses came across, but it was actually a metaphor for something as well. I think God doesn't do anything without having deep layers of meaning as well as poetry behind them. And the Star of David, just some biblical symbols that seemingly are just cultural, but actually have deep meanings behind them. So I'll be talking about those. And then I'll be off, and there's lots of other talks. As I say, some science, some spiritual, some theological. And that's going to be pathfinding. Hopefully people will be able to make use of it, apply it to their life, or at least if they are interested in metaphysics, things beyond the physical world, or supernatural. A lot of people don't even understand what supernatural means. They think it means ghostly, non-existent things. Actually, super in English just means the extreme levels of something. So supernatural doesn't mean not natural. It means still natural, but an advanced state of nature. So metaphysics, supernatural things. Some people, it would be helpful if they could understand a lot of things that at a moment are just seemingly confusing. And it helps us in our faith, in our life. And it helps us, there's a lot of barriers to having a relationship with God and understanding your own spirit and a belief that we continue after physical death, in that not everybody's religious minded. It doesn't mean they're not good. It means they don't necessarily like the churchy style of explaining things. They want, as I say, mechanical, logical ways of explaining things. And I believe there's a huge number of people out there that just reject moving closer to God and opening up to getting to know God, because it's always presented in this mystical, magical way, this fuzzy way. So I think if God's real and God created the universe, God must be scientifically minded. He must be logical, because everything, if he's real and if he created the universe and the natural world, everything he created is based on logical, scientific type principles. So if that's true, then it must be possible to get to know God through logic and scientific thinking and mechanical thinking, right? Just because our strongest relationship with God is an emotional one, it doesn't mean we can't bridge the gap between us and God that way, instead of going to church, which is also a beautiful way, and just singing songs and being moved by the Spirit and hearing talks about sin and love. I think there's multiple paths and ways to find God. And it depends on the personality of the person, what the best approach is for them. So pathfinding is also going to be about that. It's going to be about finding a way for people to understand they have eternal souls and that God exists, other than theological or religious or spiritual language. And if it works and it helps people, then that would be great. If I'm just talking gibberish, then nobody will watch. But I think, there's a lot of deep things I have to say, and a lot of friends that I've talked to about them seem to think there's merit to them. So let's see. Let's check in again if 5 or 10 episodes down the line and see if I'm a crackpot or if I've got something to say that people can use. And that's the most important thing to me. It's not that I've got something to say. I've actually meant to start this live stream over a year ago, but I was just a bit reluctant to put myself out there. But so, the most important thing to me is if people can use what you teach, apply it in their life, and experience the fruit of it, the good fruit of it. If I can hear that in the future from people, then that means it's a success, not really necessarily how many people watch or listen. So that is the plan. So this is pathfinding. That's 30 minutes. I went on a bit there, didn't I? I expected to do it for 15 minutes. All right. I'll see you on the next episode. I guess that will be maybe in a few days. I'll just prepare what I want to say a bit more in a more structured way with some notes. And I don't have one of those pithy sign-offs, but see you in the next stream. Look out for a pathfinding on Twitch, Facebook, and Musitude. No, that's wrong. That's my. See, that's why you should record and then edit before you broadcast, because you say daft things. Musitude is my music channel where I do live streaming. So Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube. All right, that's my excuse. Musitude rhymes a bit with YouTube. So see you on either of those channels, and see you soon. Thanks for watching.